The battlefield still burned when Ethan Voss opened his eyes. The air smelled of smoke and melted metal. Pieces of shattered ships floated in the blackness of space outside the broken view of his craft. He tried to move, but pain shot through his side. His small fighter had been destroyed and he had no way to escape. Bright lights cut across the wreckage. A massive alien vessel hovered above, pulling him in with a tractor beam. He knew who they were. The Zareth Empire, a race feared across the galaxy. And at the heart of that empire was one being, Queen Zira, the ruler no one dared defy. Ethan had fought to protect a trade convoy. He was the last survivor. Now he was their prisoner. Two tall guards with scaled armor pulled him out of the wreckage and dragged him through the halls of the alien ship. Their language was harsh, full of clicks and growls, but Ethan understood enough from his translator, Implant. They mocked him. To them, humans were fragile creatures. Yet Ethan did not bow his head. He kept his back straight, even though every step hurt. His silence unsettled the guards, who expected begging or tears. At last, the doors opened to a grand chamber, the throne room of the queen. It was vast and filled with alien nobles, their eyes glowing like jewels in the dim light. High above, on a throne of black stone and shining crystal, sat Queen Zira herself. She was tall, her skin a pale silver blue that shimmered under the light. Her eyes were sharp, like blades. Her crown glowed faintly, showing her power. When Ethan was thrown to his knees before her, the queen leaned forward, studying him like a strange animal. "So," she said, her voice echoing across the hall, smooth yet cold, "this is the last of the humans who dared defy my fleet." The nobles laughed. A few hissed insults. To them, Ethan was nothing more than a weak creature to toy with. But Ethan did not look away. His gaze locked with hers, calm and steady. That made the queen pause. "Strange," she said softly. "Most humans cry for mercy. You do not. Why?" Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. "Because you don't deserve my fear." A hush fell over the chamber. No one spoke to the queen like that. Several guards stepped forward, ready to strike. Him down, but Zira raised her hand. She was not angry, at least not in the way they expected. She was curious. "Bold words from a broken soldier," she said, standing from her throne. "But words will not save you." She circled him slowly like a predator studying prey. Then she smiled, though it was not warm. "I could have you executed," she said. "But death is too simple for one who defied me. Instead," she leaned close, her eyes glowing, "you will live. You will serve. Your punishment will be to entertain me, to amuse me. You will be mine." The nobles roared with laughter. To them, this was worse than death. The proud human would be reduced to nothing, more than a pet in chains. Ethan's jaw tightened. He said nothing, though his silence was not from fear. It was control. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing weakness. The queen tilted her head, almost frustrated by his calm. She expected begging. She expected him to break. Yet he did not. "You should tremble," she said, her voice sharper now. "You should beg, but you do neither. Tell me, human, what gives you such strength?" Ethan finally spoke. "Because you don't own me, and you never will." The words struck the hall like a thunderclap. Gasps spread among the nobles. The guards looked at each other in disbelief. The queen stared at him, her smile fading. For the first time, her control wavered, if only for a moment. Then slowly, she laughed. It was not cruel laughter, but something more thoughtful. "Interesting," she said, stepping back to her throne. "Perhaps you are not as weak as your species appears. Very well. Let us see how long your spirit lasts." She waved her hand. Chains of glowing energy wrapped around Ethan's wrists. The guards pulled him to his feet. "Take him to the palace," the queen ordered. "From this day forward, he belongs to me." The nobles cheered, pleased with her judgment. The guards dragged Ethan away, but as he was led through the halls, he did not hang his head. He walked tall, his eyes forward. He knew one thing. They thought they had broken him. They thought he would bow. But Ethan Voss was human, and humans did not bow so easily. In the silence of the corridors, one of the guards whispered to another, "This one is different." Yes, Ethan thought. He was different. And soon the queen herself would discover just how dangerous that difference was. The Zareth Palace was nothing like anything Ethan Voss had ever seen. Its towers pierced the skies of a world filled with storm clouds and crimson seas. The walls glowed with strange alien energy, and every corner was guarded by soldiers in scaled armor. Ethan was taken through grand halls filled with nobles who sneered at him. They whispered as he passed, their sharp voices cutting through the air. To them, he was only a prize, a human caught in battle, dragged before their queen as her new plaything. Chains of glowing energy bound his wrists, but Ethan walked with steady steps. He would not give them the pleasure of seeing fear. The guards led him into the central court, a massive chamber filled with nobles and warriors. Above them all, on a raised platform, sat Queen Zira. She leaned back in her throne, her silver blue, skin shimmering under the crystal lights. Her piercing eyes never left Ethan as he was brought before her again. "Behold," Zira announced to her court, her voice smooth yet commanding, "the human who dared fight against my fleet. He is no warrior now. He is mine." The chamber erupted in laughter. Some nobles hissed, others clapped their clawed hands together. They expected Ethan to cower under their queen's gaze, but he didn't. He met her eyes without flinching. That silence unsettled them. One noble, a tall alien with curved horns, stepped forward. "My queen," he said, sneering at Ethan. "Why, keep such a creature alive? Humans are weak. They should be destroyed, not given the honor of standing before you." Zira's lips curved into a cold smile. "Because weakness can amuse me, and if he is not weak, then his breaking will be all the sweeter." More laughter followed. Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "You can chain my hands, but not my will." The nobles hissed at the boldness. Some shouted for him to be punished. But once again Zira lifted her hand, silencing them. She studied him with a curious expression. "Very well, human," she said. "If you claim such strength, let us test it." She snapped her fingers. At once, 2 guards stepped forward, each carrying heavy stones carved with alien markings. They placed them before Ethan. "Lift them," the queen ordered. "Show us the power of your species." The stones were heavier than they looked. Ethan could feel the strain as he gripped one and raised it slowly. Pain shot through his muscles, but he held it firm, refusing to drop it. The court grew quiet. When he set the first stone down, he immediately grabbed the second. His arms shook, but his eyes stayed locked on the queen's. At last, he placed the second stone beside the first, breathing hard but standing tall. Whispers spread through the court. Zira tilted her head, her sharp gaze unreadable. "Not bad. Stronger than I expected." A different noble shouted, "It means nothing. Strength is useless without obedience." "Perhaps," Zira said softly. She leaned forward, her eyes glittering. "Kneel, human. Bow before me, and I will spare you more trials." Every eye in the chamber turned to Ethan. The moment was heavy with silence. Ethan straightened his back. His voice cut through the hall. "No." Gasps filled the chamber. The nobles shouted in outrage. A guard raised his weapon, but Zira stopped him with a gesture. Her expression had changed. No anger this time, something else. She rose from her throne and walked slowly down the steps until she stood before Ethan. Up close, her presence was overwhelming, her height towering over him, her crown glowing faintly with power. "You dare refuse me?" she asked. Ethan looked her straight in the eyes. "I told you before, you don't own me." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The court waited for the queen's wrath to fall. But instead, Zira began to laugh, softly at first, then louder. It was not cruel laughter, but filled with strange amusement. "Remarkable," she said. "A human who does not break, even in chains. You are either very foolish or very brave." She turned to her court. Let him remain in the palace. He will serve me directly. Let us see how long this defiance lasts, the nobles whispered nervously. Some looked uneasy. They had expected the human to be crushed, but instead he had stood tall. As the guards dragged him away again, Ethan caught a glimpse of Zyra's face. She was smiling faintly, but her eyes told a different story. She was curious about him in a way she had not been about anyone else. In the quiet of his new chamber, Ethan sat on the floor, his wrists still bound. He thought about what had happened. They wanted to humiliate him. They wanted to see him broken. But already, he could see cracks forming in their certainty. The queen thought she had won by making him her servant. But Ethan knew the truth. Every time he refused to kneel, every time he showed strength, he was winning something far greater. And deep inside, he felt it. Ethan Voss awoke to the soft hum of the palace. His chains glowed faintly, tethering him to the wall of his chamber. Yet his spirit remained unbroken. He had been in the Zareth palace for days now, under the watchful eyes of Queen Zyra and her guards. Every hour was a test, every glance from the queen a challenge. Despite the grand halls and the intimidating guards, Ethan noticed one thing. He was learning. He studied the palace layout, the routines of the guards, and the moods of the nobles. He had always believed that observation was as important as strength, and now it would serve him well. Later that day, Zyra herself arrived. Her presence filled the chamber like a storm. She moved with grace and authority, her silver-blue skin shimmering in the light. Her eyes, sharp as blades, fixed on Ethan. "You are bold," she said. "Few dare defy me. Most beg for mercy. But you speak as if you have no fear." Ethan met her gaze calmly. "I am not afraid. Fear belongs to those who believe they are owned. I am not owned." Zyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "And yet, here you are, bound by my chains." "I am bound by circumstance," Ethan replied, "not by choice." For the first time, Zyra tilted her head, intrigued. Most creatures would quake before her. Most would obey without question. But this human, he was different. She had expected weakness. She had expected despair. Yet he stood tall, even in chains. She circled him, her eyes studying every move, every muscle. "Tell me, human, why do you not fear me?" Ethan thought carefully. "Because power without wisdom is empty. You may rule with fear, but strength lies in the heart, in courage, and in the mind. You have power, but I have choice." The queen paused. His words were bold, yet they carried truth. No one had spoken to her this way before. She had ruled through fear, intimidation, and force for centuries. And now, this human was teaching her something new. "You are unusual," she said, softly. "Most humans crumble under pressure. You do not." "Why?" Ethan's voice was steady. "Because humans survive. We adapt. We fight, even when the odds are against us. You may have captured me, but you have not conquered me." Zyra's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in fascination. For the first time, she felt a strange emotion, respect. It was unsettling, almost confusing. She was not used to admiration for a human, especially one she had intended to humiliate. "Very well," she said, straightening. "You will face another test." Guards entered with strange equipment, obelisks that glowed with alien energy. "You will endure," Zyra said, "and we will see how long your will holds against my designs." The tests were brutal, designed to push him beyond his limits. Yet Ethan met each one with determination. He lifted, ran, and solved challenges that even the alien nobles struggled to complete. All the while, his eyes never left the queen's. Each time he succeeded, the court murmured. The whispers grew louder. The nobles were astonished. No human had ever shown such resilience. Some began to doubt their own assumptions. Zyra watched closely. She could not hide her fascination, though she tried. Every successful feat of strength and courage forced her to reconsider her perception of humans. And with each passing day, her curiosity grew. One evening, Zira called him to the private gardens of the palace. Alien plants glowed under strange light, and waterfalls of shimmering liquid cascaded into crystal pools. "You are brave, human," she said. "You defy me at every turn. Why?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes clear and honest. "Because I choose to. You may have power, but my mind and my will are my own. You cannot take them unless I allow it." Zira studied him silently. She had ruled countless worlds, conquered countless species, but never had anyone challenged her in this way. Her authority had always been absolute. Now, she felt a subtle shift. "Do you realize," she said slowly, "that your defiance is dangerous?" "I do," Ethan replied. "And yet I do not fear it. Power is not measured by chains or thrones. True power is in influence, in courage, in integrity. You have power, but you do not yet understand it fully." For a long moment the Queen considered his words. Her expression softened. Not completely, but enough for Ethan to notice. For the first time, she questioned the absolute fear she had always relied upon to rule. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," Zira said finally, "and unlike any prisoner I have held. I expected you to break, but you have endured. You have persisted." Ethan nodded. "I endure because I must, and I persist because giving up is not in my nature." The Queen leaned back against the crystalline railing of the garden balcony, looking out at her empire. She had fought countless wars, ruled countless planets, yet she had never met a being who challenged her like this. And the strange truth was, she wanted to understand him more. "You have spirit," she admitted. "Strength, mind, and courage. You are dangerous, and yet fascinating." Ethan allowed a small, confident smile. "You may see me as a threat, but you will also see me as an equal if you watch closely." Zira's eyes glinted with curiosity and something else, an unfamiliar recognition of potential, of power that was not her own. She had sentenced him to chains, yet somehow he had begun to shift the balance between them. In that moment, both of them understood that the rules were changing. The Queen had meant to break him, to dominate him. Instead, he had begun to plant seeds of doubt, of curiosity, and even of respect. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan knew the game had just begun. The chains that bound him were physical, but his influence was invisible. And soon, he would see how far that influence could reach. For the first time in centuries, Queen Zira felt something she could not control entirely. And for the first time, Ethan felt the beginnings of a plan that could turn the tables entirely. The court, the guards, the nobles, they all believed the human was nothing but a captive. But Ethan Voss was more than that. He was a spark, a challenge, and a human. And humans did not bow easily, even in the face of queens. Days passed in the Zareth Palace, each one blending into the next with the rhythm of alien drills and the quiet hum of energy flowing through the walls. Ethan Voss moved through it all with calm determination. Though still bound in chains during certain hours, he walked the halls with the same confidence as if he were free. He noticed small things, the way guards moved when the Queen entered, the gestures of nobles when they whispered among themselves, even the subtle pauses Zira made when observing him. Every detail was a piece of a puzzle he intended to understand. The palace staff had begun to watch him differently. The way he carried himself, the way he answered questions with respect yet without fear. It drew quiet admiration. Some whispered, in hushed tones to one another, "Perhaps this human is more than a simple prisoner." Zira noticed it too. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, followed him constantly. At first it had been curiosity, then irritation. Now, it was something else. She saw how the people responded to him. Even her most loyal nobles were influenced by his courage. It unsettled her. One evening, she summoned him to the training arena. The arena was massive, surrounded by hovering platforms where nobles watched. A glowing ring of energy separated him from Zira as she stepped forward. "Human," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You have survived every test, endured every trial, and defied me at every moment. Yet, you are still bound. You understand your place." Ethan raised his chin. "My place is not defined by chains or thrones. My place is where I choose to be. I choose to stand here, and I choose to face you." Zira paused, her silver blue skin catching the light. "Bold words, and yet, you intrigue me. The court has begun to whisper of your strength, your persistence, your courage. I see it in their eyes. Do you realize what you are doing?" "Yes," Ethan replied simply. "I am surviving. I am learning, and I am showing them that strength comes in many forms, not only in fear or domination." The queen narrowed her eyes. "You are influencing my people, human. That is dangerous. And yet," he said calmly, "you watch and learn from me. Even you are influenced." The arena was quiet for a moment. Zira considered his words, then stepped closer. "Perhaps you are correct. Perhaps power is more than chains and thrones. Perhaps there is something I have overlooked." Ethan held her gaze steadily. "You have always ruled through fear, but influence is stronger than fear. Respect, trust, even admiration, and they can shift hearts far more than force ever could." Zira's eyes glinted with something new, recognition, challenge, and perhaps a touch of fascination. She had never met a being who could challenge her in this way, and she realized with an uneasy thrill that she did not want to break him. She wanted to see how far he would go. "Very well," she said, her voice lowering. "Then you will face one final trial, not of strength but of strategy. Show me that your mind is as powerful as your body. Convince me that you can command, not just endure." Ethan nodded. "Then I accept your challenge." The queen summoned her nobles and guards to watch. She laid out a series of tactical simulations, complex, holographic battles with ships, troops, and energy barriers. The exercise was meant to humiliate him, to show that even a brave human was limited in understanding alien tactics. Yet Ethan surprised them all. He analyzed the simulations carefully, anticipating outcomes, considering variables they had never thought a human could grasp. When he made his moves, the results astonished the observers. Enemy forces were outmaneuvered, traps were avoided, and victory came where failure had seemed certain. The nobles met to he. The grand hall of the Zareth Palace was alive with chatter and movement. Nobles hovered above on crystalline platforms, their glowing eyes fixed on the center below. The queen's throne gleamed in the distance, and for once, it seemed less commanding than before. Ethan Voss stepped into the hall, his chains removed for the occasion. He was called to appear before the court, a display, the nobles thought, meant to show the human his place. But Ethan had long since learned the rules of this palace and its people. Now he would subtly rewrite them. The nobles watched him, expecting fear or submission. Instead, Ethan walked tall, shoulders back, chin high. Every step projected confidence, control, and calm. His presence alone shifted the attention of the room. Queen Zira rose from her throne, her silver blue skin shimmering under the lights. She studied him carefully. "Human," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "You have been tested, observed, and challenged. And yet you stand before us, unbroken. Do you understand your place?" Ethan's gaze did not falter. "Yes," he said, his voice firm and clear. "My place is to act with courage, integrity, and honesty. That does not mean obedience to fear, and that does not mean submission to those who lack respect for life and spirit." The hall fell silent. A few nobles exchanged glances. They had never heard a human speak with such authority, nor have one speak truths that resonated so deeply. Zira's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but curiosity. "And what is it you wish to prove?" she asked. "That even in chains," Ethan said, "even when those who believe they are powerful seek to intimidate, true strength lies in the mind, the heart, and the will." Power without understanding is fragile. Influence built on fear is weak. Respect, courage, and fairness endure. Murmurs spread across the platforms. Some nobles whispered agreement. Others whispered doubt, unsettled by the human's audacity. Zira leaned forward, intrigued. "You have words, human. But can you act? Can you lead?" Ethan smiled faintly. "If given the chance, yes." The queen motioned to a display in the center of the hall, a holographic map of the palace grounds showing positions of guards, secret corridors, and even potential threats. "Here is your trial. You are to show us strategy, foresight, and leadership. Convince us that you are more than a captive." Ethan studied the display carefully. He analyzed the positions of forces, the flow of guards, and the possible weaknesses in the palace's defense. Each move, each counter, was deliberate. He anticipated outcomes, suggested reroutes, and found solutions that impressed the court. The nobles leaned forward, their eyes widening. Even the queen's expression softened, though she tried to hide it. The human's plan was not only clever but elegant. It balanced risk with security, strength with subtlety. After presenting his strategy, Ethan turned to the court. "You see," he said, "power alone does not secure loyalty. Wisdom, fairness, and the courage to protect those under your command do. Influence comes not from fear, but from respect earned through action." The hall was quiet. Nobles whispered among themselves, nodding slowly. Some were hesitant to show approval openly, but the words were impossible to ignore. Sira's voice finally broke the silence. "Human, your words and actions have reached far beyond what I expected. You influenced not only the court, but the guards, and even me. You have changed the atmosphere of this hall without raising your hand in violence." Ethan bowed slightly, a gesture of respect rather than submission. "I do not seek to challenge you, my queen, but to remind you, even the smallest spark can shift the course of fire." The queen's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. She realized that she had begun to see him not as a prisoner, but as an equal mind. He had earned more than survival. He had earned attention, influence, and the unspoken respect of her court. The nobles, sensing the shift, grew cautious. They had relied on fear and control to maintain order, but now the human had shown another form of power, one built on courage, intelligence, and composure. Slowly, the balance in the hall was changing. Zira leaned forward on her throne. "You have done what no other human or alien has done. You have turned a punishment into opportunity. You have gained influence where others could not. And yet..." She paused, her eyes sharp. "Do you realize what this means?" "I do," Ethan said simply. "It means that power is not always given by chains or titles. Sometimes it is earned through action, wisdom, and courage." The queen allowed a rare smile. "Perhaps I misjudged your species. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I assumed. Perhaps..." Her gaze softened slightly. "Perhaps you are teaching me a lesson I needed to remember." Ethan met her eyes calmly. "We all have lessons to learn, my queen. Even those who rule entire empires." For the first time in centuries, Queen Zyra did not feel absolute control. She felt challenged, intrigued, and unexpectedly aligned with someone she had intended to dominate. The hall, the court, the nobles, all had witnessed a subtle but undeniable shift. The human was no longer a captive in the shadows of chains. He was a presence, a mind, a force that could not be ignored. And as Ethan stepped back, allowing the nobles to absorb his words, the queen realized something remarkable. The human she had sentenced to obedience had, in truth, begun to command, influence over the very court she ruled. For the first time, Zyra wondered. Perhaps she had underestimated humans all along. Perhaps this one human was not just defiant. He was remarkable, and the court sensed it too. Whispers spread among nobles. The human. He is more than we imagined. The balance of power had subtly shifted. The queen had intended to display her absolute authority, but now she had inadvertently created something new. Influence was no longer only hers to wield. Ethan Voss, by courage, intelligence, and calm defiance, had begun to claim his place, not as a prisoner, but as a presence that even the Queen had to acknowledge. And in that acknowledgement, a new chapter of the palace's history began, one where human will and spirit began to leave its mark on an empire that had never known it before. The chains of the past still existed, but their meaning had changed. Ethan was no longer merely a captive. He had begun to claim power in ways the Queen had never expected, and in the quiet shift of glances, whispers, and respect, the human had begun to make the impossible possible. The palace was quiet in the early hours, but the tension in the air was sharp. Rumors of rebellion had reached the Zareth court. A group of nobles sought to overthrow Queen Zira, believing that her fascination with the human prisoner had weakened her authority. Ethan Voss, however, was ready. He had spent weeks observing, learning and understanding the patterns of the palace. Every guard, every noble, every hidden passage, he knew them all. And now the final test was at hand. Human. Zira's voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and commanding, yet tinged with concern. You have learned well. But can your courage match the chaos of war? Can your strategy save this palace? Ethan stood tall. If we face it together, yes. If you trust me, we can end this threat without unnecessary loss. Zira regarded him silently. For the first time, she hesitated, not with fear but with curiosity. She had underestimated humans for centuries. This one, however, was unlike any other. She nodded slightly. Then lead us. The rebels struck at dawn. They moved swiftly, expecting surprise and chaos to give them the upper hand. But Ethan had anticipated their plans. Using the knowledge he had gathered, he positioned guards strategically, set diversions, and guided the Queen's forces with precision. From the throne room, Zira observed in amazement. Every move Ethan suggested countered the rebels' attacks. His calm presence inspired the guards, his strategic thinking outmaneuvered even the most experienced nobles, and the tide of the battle quickly turned in their favor. The rebels had expected an easy victory, but Ethan had turned the palace into a fortress. His influence over the soldiers was clear. They followed his commands without hesitation, acting not out of fear, but respect and trust. In the midst of the chaos, a young noble attempted to confront Zira directly, hoping to force her surrender. Ethan intercepted the threat, positioning himself as a shield without hesitation. The Queen watched closely, realizing that the human she had once considered a prisoner was now her equal in bravery and skill. When the battle ended, the rebels were defeated, captured, or in retreat. The palace had survived, and the Queen owed much of its safety to the human who had been brought as a prisoner. Zira descended from her throne and approached Ethan. The court watched silently, sensing a moment of change. The Queen, who had ruled through fear and absolute control for centuries, now regarded the human with a mixture of respect and admiration. You have done what I never expected, she said quietly. You have defended this palace, protected my people, and guided my forces. In every way you have proven yourself extraordinary. Ethan bowed slightly, a gesture of respect rather than submission. I did what I could. Courage and strategy matter more than titles or fear. I serve those who trust reason and honor. For a moment, silence stretched in the chamber. Then Zira reached out, not with chains, not with commands, but with an acknowledgement of partnership. You were meant to be my prisoner, she said softly, but in truth, you have become my equal. The nobles gasped. Some whispered in disbelief. The Queen, once untouchable, now openly acknowledged a human as her equal. The rules of the palace, the expectations of power and control, had shifted entirely.